Let's talk about discipline, business, wealth, and life. Do you consider yourself a disciplined person? For a really long time, I wasn't very disciplined, but people have talked to me all the time. They say, Jackson, you've got so much discipline. How do you achieve all of these things that you set out to do? I'm going to share with you a couple of tips that help me kind of shift my perspective on where discipline comes from. I personally don't believe it's something that you're born with. I think it's something that you need to work at, and it is a state of mind. So I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. For years, I was a serial procrastinator, something that I inherited from my old man. My old man was a dreamer. He had massive dreams. He wanted to conquer the world, but he had very little follow through. And there was always an excuse for him falling short of his goals and ambitions. Bad luck, bad business partnerships, people taking advantage of him, all of these kind of external factors. There was always other people to blame other than himself. And for years I felt sorry for him because ultimately I thought that he was just a person that was down on his luck, and if only he was able to get a fair chance, that he would be able to reach his potential, right? And it wasn't until years later, after falling into the trap myself of being someone that was kind of do what I say, not what I do, constantly finding excuses to not do certain things, that I made a decision that I believe that discipline is not something that you're born with, it's something that you work for. And let's give you a little bit of an analogy. So your mindset as an individual is basically the driver, and hopefully you are in the driver's seat of your life and your physical self that exists in the world. Now, we've got to understand that the engine that we have in our life, our potential, is basically there's a part that comes between you as the driver who's pressing down the accelerator and the actual potential hitting the ground, creating inertia and creating that forward momentum. And that comes in the form of a clutch. Now, for the vast majority of people, that clutch is disengaged. And it doesn't matter how hard you hit that accelerator, you are never going to put that potential to the ground in order to get momentum. But what many entrepreneurial people do, and I made this mistake myself, is that you just dump the clutch, right? And anybody who's driven a manual knows that when you dump the clutch, you stall out, right? And this happens to so many people. They get overwhelmed by the amount of energy that is going into that driveline that they stall out, right? And they go, oh, this is just not who I am. I'm not able to do these things. I'm not a disciplined person. And they come up with all of these external validations in the world that are getting in the way of them and the forward momentum that they ultimately want. Now, what do you do about that? Well, you need to ease into it. Now, I'll give you another example. For years, I didn't think that I was an athlete, right? I said, I'm not a runner, I'm not an athlete, I don't have physical endurance, I don't have the ability to do all of these things. And it was just a story that I told myself. And when you tell yourself these stories, how does it show up in the world? You find proof that proves it to be true. So for years, I didn't do those things. Now, I recently had this kind of epiphany. I've been going on this kind of thought experiment to test this philosophy, that as soon as I shift my perspective, I completely shift the momentum in that area of my life. So I started training to basically work up to this running race in Far North Queensland that's basically one of the most difficult in the world of its kind. It's called the Great Pyramid Race. And I said to myself, okay, I am an athlete. I'm going to start learning how to run, and I'm going to get my training in order, and I'm going to give this race the best possible chance that I have, and I'm going to try my best to finish it. Now, I've been running for 2 weeks now, and I've just run 5 kilometers 2 days in a row, and basically I've never run before in my life. And this happens every single aspect of my life. It happens in my business, that when I put my mind to something, that I say, hey, I follow through, I'm dedicated, I get things done within the time that I set, I'm good with money, I'm able to achieve my growth objectives, I'm able to run a profitable and sustainable business, I'm able to have a highly engaged team. All of these decisions that I make become manifestations, and I'm able to push through being in the driver's seat. I'm able to engage the clutch and get forward momentum in the right way without stalling out. And I'm able to trust in my ability to push through and be a disciplined person. And ultimately, it's having the ability to push through that friction point that so many people have, that feeling in the pit of their stomach. It's like an invisible anchor, that they know what they need to do, but for one reason or another, they just can't muster up the strength, the determination, the willpower to push through and see that momentum. Because as soon as you create that momentum, that's the hardest thing, that's the hardest step. And then you ride that momentum through to whatever it is that you are trying to achieve. So I wanted to just share this with you I feel this is so important. I think you have a choice of whether you are going to be seen as a disciplined person in the world. And discipline, I believe, is a lag indicator for understanding how you create that initial momentum, understanding how you're wired to create that intrinsic drive and motivation, and trying to play that game of constantly optimizing to have that follow through and trust in the things that you say that you're actually going to do them. Let me hear thoughts about this below, guys.